Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, the coach from the WWE. And during this very difficult time, we've got all the time we can handle. So I'm going through looking for all the different great content to make myself better, to make myself smarter. And I found one. So I want you to watch this next YouTube video on wrestling bios and understand that this content is what you need. This content makes you smarter in the world of pro wrestling. So I'm gonna sit back and watch, and hopefully you do too. Be safe, enjoy the content, and let Wrestling Bios know how much you appreciate the effort. Because we're all in this together. Enjoy.
There have been many legitimate athletes that have transitioned into professional wrestling and stepped foot in the ring. Many had high hopes of making an impact and becoming a major star in the world of wrestling, and some actually done quite well for themselves. With this in mind, maybe no one was able to pick things up as fast as what Kurt Angle did. Kurt Angle was a 2-time NCAA wrestling champion, a 3-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time USA Freestyle champion, the 1995 Amateur Wrestling World Champion, and he went on to win a gold medal in freestyle wrestling during the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. An incredible achievement made even more incredible when you learn that Kurt Angle won the gold medal with severe neck injuries. Winning the gold medal at the Olympics would kind of shape the Kurt Angle we all know and love in wrestling. His gimmick would be centered around his Olympic victory, but on a personal and professional level, winning the gold medal also displayed Angle's incredible work ethic and his unrelenting desire to achieve the goals he set for himself. There's nothing that shows determination more than winning a gold medal in the Olympics with the agony of a broken neck. When Kurt Angle made the transition into professional wrestling, that unrelenting desire would serve him extremely well. It's been said that no one in the history of pro wrestling picked up the fundamentals as quickly as Kurt Angle, and in no time at all, Kurt Angle achieved his goal of making it in the world of professional wrestling, a world far, far away from his amateur wrestling days. So let's take a look at the beginning of Kurt Angle's WWF career and see how well he did during his initial months in Vince McMahon's wrestling organisation. Shane Douglas deserves some credit for bringing Kurt Angle into the world of wrestling in October of 1996. Upon Shane's invitation, Kurt Angle made an appearance at the ECW tapings on October 26, 1996, the ECW High Incident tapings to be exact. This show became infamous. It featured Raven and his nest crucifying the Sandman, one of those things in the land of extreme that even made the audience in attendance go silent. Kurt Angle had been shown on screen before the Sandman incident went down. He even done some commentary on the same evening, but when the Sandman crucifixion happened, Kurt Angle was so disgusted that he left the arena. Kurt was very protective over his image and very protective over his brand at this time. This was only a few months after his Olympic gold medal victory, so he didn't want to be associated with what ECW pulled off on this night. Obviously, Kurt didn't know beforehand that this was going to happen. Kurt said, "I'm sitting there watching and I saw something that just completely shocked me. It was a crucifixion of Sandman that included Raven and the Sandman's son. It offended me so badly that I got up in the middle of the show, went to Paul Heyman and said, I'm leaving right now. I want you to send me my check, and if I'm seen on TV with that crucifixion, then you'll be hearing from my attorney. I remember leaving that arena so mad and so offended that they would do something like that. Paul Heyman told me he didn't know it was going to happen. As someone who was running the show, if you don't know what was going on, then you're an idiot. Vince McMahon was also very interested in bringing Kurt Angle to the WWF immediately following his gold medal win at the Olympics. However, talks fell through. Angle was offered a lengthy contract to compete in the World Wrestling Federation, and Bruce Pritchard said on his podcast that talks fell through when Angle said he would be unwilling to job to anyone. He did not want to lose any matches at all. Now, the immediate thought here is that Kurt Angle was full of himself. Saying you're unwilling to do the job in wrestling instantly makes you public enemy number one in the eyes of smart wrestling fans. But you have to remember that Kurt didn't really know the ins and outs of professional wrestling at this point. Add to this that Angle was receiving money for endorsements, commercials and sponsorships. You can see why he was maybe a little overprotective of his name and brand. Mix in his lack of deep knowledge in regards to the workings of pro wrestling, and you can see here that Kurt wasn't maybe being big-headed, he was just being naive and a little overprotective. During 1998, Kurt's feelings towards wrestling had shifted. He became a huge fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he also noticed that the athleticism of WWF performances was on a much higher level than what they had been just a few years prior. There's no doubt also that those sponsorship and endorsement offers had also begun drying up. Let's not paint a perfect picture here. Kurt signed an 8-year World Wrestling Federation contract and went to train with Dory Funk Jr. and Tom Pritchard in Dory Funk's Funking Dojo in Connecticut. Angle was signed to a lengthy deal for two reasons. The first being that he required professional training, and the second being that the WWF saw Kurt Angle, an Olympic gold medalist, as an investment. The plan was to build Kurt as a megastar, so he was given one of the best and most lucrative developmental deals in WWF's history. Triple H said that nobody picked up pro wrestling as fast as what Kurt Angle did, crediting Angle's incredible athleticism as a reason why the Olympic gold medalist was able to adapt to professional wrestling in record speed. Angle had only been training for a week when he had his very first professional match, working against Tom Pritchard in a World Wrestling Alliance show held on August 20th, 1998. Angle lost his debut pro match here, but won every other match in the months that followed, maybe keeping Angle's expectations in check here right from the get-go, with his first pro match being a loss. Tom Pritchard may have been the man who handed Angle his debut loss, but in the days and weeks that followed, Kurt Angle had matches with Shawn Stasiak, Christian and Tiger Ali Singh. Angle made an appearance for the WWF on the March 19th, 1999 episode of Sunday Night Heat, his first time on WWF screens here when he took out Tiger Ali Singh after Singh wanted Angle to blow his nose on the American flag. By April the same year, while gaining more experience in Power Pro Wrestling in Memphis, Kurt Angle then began working dark matches for the World Wrestling Federation, mainly on Shotgun Saturday Night and Sunday Night Heat. Of note here also is that Kurt Angle worked at the 1999 King of the Ring, taking a loss to Shawn Stasiak here, while Stasiak was working as the Meat character. Anyway, Angle captured the PPW heavyweight title in July of 1999 while continuing to work dark matches for the World Wrestling Federation, which by this point had also included Raw and Smackdown shows, and by Survivor Series 1999, just over a year after signing his WWF contract, Kurt Angle was ready to make his WWF in-ring TV debut. So yes, it's been said multiple times that Kurt Angle was an extremely fast learner when it came to pro wrestling, but Kurt also had a ton of matches before he worked at the Survivor Series in '99. What we saw on pay-per-view that year was a man who had already been working at a professional level for over 12 months. So by the time November came around in '99, Kurt Angle was more than ready. When Kurt Angle took out Tiger Ali Singh on Sunday Night Heat during his TV debut in Pittsburgh, he had gotten a great response from his hometown audience. Kurt was riding high on that ovation, so he was shocked when Vince McMahon told him that he was going to be a heel. Kurt felt like a legitimate hero to the American people thanks to winning the gold medal, but Vince had other plans, and to Vince's credit, he had the foresight to see that fans would eventually turn on Angle. Vince said, "I said, look, you're this hero, but at the same time, when we bring you into the WWE, you're going to be a heel because you're so good. You've accomplished so much, you're above the business, you're a real wrestler." Vignettes aired on WWF programming hyping the in-ring debut of Kurt Angle, and these vignettes were used to kinda get under people's skin. Kurt would say he was an Olympic hero and a success in life, while also stating that some stars of the WWF could also win a gold medal if they have that little extra something that Kurt himself possesses. The promos were done very well. Kurt was very condescending in a roundabout way, trying to come across as a nice guy, but at the same time, he was totally full of himself. Kurt talked about his 3 eyes during these promos, saying he hopes his intensity, integrity and intelligence would inspire other WWF superstars. Good stuff here. Angle came across as someone blinded by his own success. He was better than all of us because he won the gold medal, and these character traits would go on to serve Kurt Angle very well for the remainder of his career. So let's look at Angle's WWF in-ring TV debut at the 1999 Survivor Series then. Kurt was introduced as the only Olympic gold medalist to ever grace a WWF ring and the most celebrated real athlete in WWF history. Kurt came to the ring and the booing had already begun. When his match with Shawn Stasiak got underway, a man who Kurt had worked with a ton of times by this point, the crowd started chanting "boring" within seconds, and then they started chanting for the local sports team. Angle though was very impressive during the early moments of this match, showing off quick transitions during holds and some incredible suplexes. He didn't look out of place at all. The icing on the cake though came when Kurt Angle rolled out of the ring, grabbed the microphone and told the fans in attendance that they should not boo him, stating that he is competing in the ring for the fans and therefore they should be treating him with respect. This was a Vince McMahon idea and it was extremely effective. Anyway, the match went perfectly. Kurt Angle won with the Olympic Slam, and after all the bragging Kurt had done in the vignettes leading up to this match, you could only imagine what would have happened if he went out there and botched a ton of moves. The very next night on Raw, Kurt Angle was featured in another match. Raw was from Pittsburgh on this night, Angle's home grounds, so Kurt legitimately felt he was going to get cheered on this night. Vince wanted Kurt to once again grab a microphone during the match and again question the fans on why they are booing him, but Kurt was adamant to Vince backstage that the Pittsburgh audience would be cheering for him. Kurt Angle would go up against someone with a little more experience this time, The Godfather, and of course when Kurt came to the ring, the fans in attendance booed him. Kurt Angle got in the ring and The Godfather offered him a trade. If Angle would trade his Olympic gold medal, he could spend the night with The Godfather's ladies. Kurt said he was there to wrestle, and so the trade of a lifetime was swiftly taken off the tables. Kurt's hometown audience didn't care too much for Angle here, and just as planned, he grabbed the mic and he said he can't believe the fans were cheering for a pimp and not an Olympic gold medalist. Angle ended up getting the win after nailing the Olympic Slam once again, though the Godfather was distracted by a protester who came to the ring with a sign saying that the WWF stood for worldwide filth. That same week, Kurt Angle made his SmackDown debut, a show that Kurt would become a huge part of in the years that followed. Angle worked against Gangrel here, and once again, Kurt stopped the match to question why the fans refused to cheer for him. Angle continued his winning streak with the Olympic Slam, pinning Gangrel here in a match that really wasn't that competitive, to be fair. After more wins on TV over Mark Henry, D'Lo Brown and Val Venus, Kurt made his way to the WWF Armageddon 1999 pay-per-view to compete in what I believe was his best match up to this point. Angle took on Steve Blackman at this pay-per-view, a match that Angle won, continuing his impressive televised winning streak in singles competition, while he still wondered why fans wouldn't get behind him. Eventually, Angle would stop questioning the fans and instead, he would anoint himself as their Olympic hero, something that went a long way in making fans boo him even more. Even in these early days though, it was clear as day that Kurt Angle was good in the ring. He never got tired, he never slowed down, nobody could compete with his mat skills and his unique moveset. Kurt Angle was always really fun to watch, even from the start. As a heel character, the choice to make Kurt angry that fans didn't cheer for him, but then turn this into Kurt being totally oblivious to how the fans felt about him, was genius. It's like we're supposed to dislike this guy, but we could also see that he was everything he said he was, including being an excellent athlete. Anyway, shortly after Armageddon, Kurt Angle and Edge locked horns for the very first time in a WWF ring, and I wanted to mention this match here because you'll notice when watching this one back that Kurt Angle had found his confidence by this point. It only took him a matter of weeks, and don't get me wrong, Kurt was already good when he came into the WWF, but his mic skills here and the timing of his promo, his reactions to the audience, and his ring work had gone from good to great in a matter of no time at all. It's quite a thing to see, jumping from his debut promos and in-ring work to what we see just over a month later. The guy's adjustment to WWF style wrestling matches and his promo work was insane. Kurt's feud with Steve Blackman continued at the beginning of the year 2000. The Royal Rumble in January saw Kurt take his first singles loss in the WWF, losing to new signee Tazz in Madison Square Garden. Tazz was an unnamed opponent on this night. It was supposed to be a surprise, but the New York audience knew who Kurt's opponent would be. They chanted, "We want Tazz," as Kurt Angle said his opponent just needs to take a deep breath, come down to the ring, and give it everything he's got. Tazz's WWF debut was good also. Even Kurt Angle fans should check this one out. The crowd reaction is fantastic. Now, keep in mind, Kurt Angle didn't submit when he got locked into the Tazz mission. Instead, he passed out from the hold. To get Tazz and the Tazz mission over, Kurt Angle didn't regain consciousness in the ring. He was carried out on a stretcher, and he was shown later in the broadcast asking doctors if he won the match or not. He was totally out of it here. Kurt said to the doctor that if he was choked out, then that's an illegal maneuver and he is still undefeated, but the doctor just couldn't care less about wrestling at all. Kurt came out the next night on Raw and said he had letters from the Olympic Committee and sports doctors to say that the Tazz mission was an illegal chokehold. Kurt said that Tazz lacks one of his three eyes, and that's integrity due to his upbringing on the streets. But he also said that he forgives Tazz and his undefeated streak is still intact. Tazz's music played, outwalked the human suplex machine, and Kurt found himself once again locked in the Tazz mission. Kurt couldn't stay undefeated forever, and if he did, he never would have moved up the cards. Heels don't stay undefeated for very long. The big hero superstars of the WWF need good heels to defeat, and with Kurt Angle now taking a loss, he could maybe begin moving up the ladder a little. This is exactly what happened the very next week on Raw. On the January 31st episode of the WWF's flagship television show, Kurt Angle squared off with The Rock for the very first time. Along with this, Raw again here was held in Pittsburgh, so a real opportunity here for Kurt to hang with one of the WWF's big boys in front of his own people. Audiences were, by and large, still booing Kurt Angle, but there were a few in attendance that were cheering for their Olympic hero. This didn't stop Angle grabbing the mic during the match, upset that the fans had chosen Rocky over their hometown boy. Kurt didn't get a chance to finish telling the story about how he was born in Mercy Hospital, just a few blocks away from the arena, thanks to The Rock taking Kurt out, grabbing the mic and telling Kurt, "It doesn't matter where you were born." Kurt suffered his first pinfall loss here to The Rock, and I'm sure Kurt also noticed the value in losing matches too. Remember, years prior, Kurt once said that he would only sign a WWF contract if he was booked to win every single match. Jump forward a few years, and thanks to Kurt seeing a little bit of sense, he was now in the ring with one of the WWF's biggest superstars of all time. Look, that's going to do it for this video. Sometimes you just have to know when to stop. The very next week, Kurt Angle would get his first WWF Championship gold when he defeated Val Venus to become the European Champion, and just a few short weeks later, Kurt would also become the Intercontinental Champion when he defeated Chris Jericho, leading to Kurt holding both titles at the same time. If this isn't proof that the WWF are willing to give Angle a strong push, then I don't know what is. Remember, Kurt was signed to a lengthy contract. You best believe the WWF would try and mould the star out of Angle after the massive investment they put in. They didn't need to try too hard though. From amateur success to stepping into the pro wrestling world, Kurt Angle was everything a fan could want in a pro wrestler. Right off the bat, the guy was insanely good in the ring. His promo work was entertaining, and his timing on both the mic and in the ring made it feel like Kurt had been a professional wrestler for years upon years. Will Kurt Angle make a return to wrestling bios? Oh, it's true. It's damn true.